Hi, my name is David McBee with davidmcbee.com, and I'm here to talk to you about infographics. Yes, infographics, those silly little things you see in your Twitter feed and all over the place on blogs. I'm going to tell you why they are a great strategy for just about any business and why I'm just so passionate about infographics. So here we go, the why you need an infographic presentation. The first reason that you want infographics, well, there's three reasons you want infographics. The first one is it's going to drive traffic to your site. It literally will bring visitors to your site. That's the whole point of an infographic, to bring people to your site, right? We want people to come to our site so we can sell our products, our services, tell them what an expert we are. So let's see if it actually does that. Now, this is an infographic put together by a company called BitRebels. And they actually did a survey of some of the traffic some of the biggest, most popular infographics have gotten. Now, take a look at this. The first one is how to create green moss wall graffiti. It got 103,000 visitors when it was on StumbleUpon. I'll let that sink in for a minute. An infographic that brought 100,000 people to their website. That's amazing. Other sites are, or other infographics are great, Geeks versus Nerds, The Anatomy, and then one of my favorites is size comparisons of your favorite sci-fi spaceships. If you haven't seen that one, check it out. It's crazy. You realize how big the Enterprise is compared to our NASA space shuttles. It's silly. But it brought 10,000 visitors to the site. All right, here's just a little peek at a back-end analytics. On this particular website, they posted an infographic on July 23rd. And as you can see, the actual site traffic significantly increased. That came from Twitter and Facebook and just people sharing the infographic. This particular infographic was on a site called Visually, and that site alone brought 700 eyeballs to this infographic. So yeah, absolutely, infographics can bring traffic to your site. But the other thing that you want an infographic to do is backlinks. You want backlinks from infographics. Now, if you're not familiar with why infographics or why backlinks are so important, spend a little more time on davidmcbee.com. I write all about backlinks and why they're important to Google. But suffice to say, they're going to help your website rank better. So if we can get backlinks to your infographic, that's going to be great. All right, let's take a look at this. Now, this is an infographic about the most expensive Google AdWords of all time. As you can see, the big orange piece of pie right there is insurance, and some of those clicks are costing $54 a piece and more. Then you've got loans, you've got mortgages, and you can see those three particular categories are a huge piece of the puzzle. Then it goes on from there. Now, the people who created this infographic could have simply created a list of 20 of the top keywords on Google, right? But would that list have gotten all the activity and all the attention that this infographic got? I challenge that it wouldn't. This particular infographic was linked back from over 360 websites. That's 360 other independent websites linked back to this infographic. That's a huge vote of confidence. When Google sees that, they go back to that and they go, wow, this guy knows what he's talking about. So those links are really, really huge for that website. Now here's another infographic. This is one of my favorites. It's so silly. It's about color palettes. And it looks at the colors of comic book heroes, right? I know that sounds absolutely silly, but this infographic was picked up by so many different sites. All these comic book sites, all these sites about color, they took this infographic, they put it on their sites, and bam, it's everywhere. Just do a Google search for this colors of good versus evil, and you'll see that it's on so many different sites. So many sites have linked to it that this really is a huge infographic. It's very, very popular. All right, so why are infographics such a big deal on social? Well, because Google likes to see, and those other search engines like to see social love. They like to see tweets and likes and plus ones and so on. Now, this is an example of an infographic about why you should switch to Google+. Now, whether or not you agree with whether or not Google+ is a great platform or not is kind of irrelevant here. This infographic decided to say there's 20 good reasons to do it. And look how many people saw this and tweeted it. Over 4,000 people liked it, 3,000 tweets, 4,000 Google+ ones. There are literally thousands of people who have looked at this infographic and shared it. And that doesn't even account for all the folks who saw it but didn't share it. Right? So now when Google crawls this particular infographic, they see all that social media activity on there. they're going to consider this an authoritative resource for that particular question. And we'll come back to that in a bit. Now, the reason that infographics are so effective is because our brain likes pictures. We all know that. Heck, you're watching a video right now because you'd rather watch me than read, right? And infographics work the same way. Our brains process the visual elements faster. And here's a great quote. Infographics are popular because they draw you in with visual contrast, a dance of structure and art, and reward you with raw facts. Data is emerging as the judge of opinion, and people want to see it for themselves and like the idea of thinking on vast amounts of historical measurements in an efficient, accessible way. I love that quote. The popularity of infographics lies in the weakness of articles. People in general are really bad at writing stuff, and we all have ADHD. So we like infographics. We like the shortness of them. We like the briefness of them. Now let's talk about where we find infographics. They're all over the search engines, they're all over social media, and of course blogs and email, but I'm actually going to show you some examples. Now, remember earlier when I talked about that infographic on reasons to switch to Google+? Now, if you Google that right now, you're going to find that the number 2, 3, and 4 answers that Google serves up in the results are that infographic. That's how authoritative that infographic is on that particular subject. So if you're on Facebook and you're wondering, should I go get on Google+, what are some good reasons? There's a chance you're going to find this infographic as your result. So I challenge you as a business owner, what questions are your clients asking? What infographic could you create that would be the result or the solution that they're looking for? All right, so they're in search engines. Also, you're going to find them in your Facebook. Now, this is my own personal Facebook feed. My son is a Boy Scout. My wife and I are Scout leaders, and so we follow this Scout reservation, and they put up an infographic about all the great things the boys could do at the lake, all these water activities, right? And it's pretty cool. I will tell you this, when I saw this infographic in my Facebook feed, it was up for about an hour, and it already had over 300 likes, something like 26 comments, and 71 people had shared it on their Facebook walls. You know, it's like the old network marketing. You share it, and they share it, and they share it, and it just kind of grows like a virus. That's why they call it going viral. And so, if they had simply written a post about all the things that the boys could do on the lake at the Scout reservation, do you think that people would have been as apt to share that? No, but because it's so visual, because it's so colorful and interesting, people are really excited to share it. And of course, you're going to find infographics on Twitter. They're all over Twitter. Now, this is a search for the word infographic, so every result has infographic in it. But I promise you that if you're a Twitter user and you're interested in whatever it is you're interested in, you're probably going to see infographics somewhere in your feed. And it's a great thing. People click on them. They like to see them because they're quick, they're easy to read, they're interesting. Pinterest, of course, is practically designed for infographics. It's all about visualization. People who want to see pictures. And of course, that's what infographics are. They put those pictures out in front of you, and you can really see the story going on. You're also going to see them on blogs, and there's blog articles that are specific to a given topic, and an infographic can support that topic. In this case, it's a blog article about website design. So the author includes an infographic about web design to help support his ideas. Awesome. But there are also infographic blogs that are just infographics for days and days and days. So if you like infographics, you can just go check those out all day. Now, this is a site called Daily Statistics, and every single day they put up some kind of statistics that are interesting and fun. Well, I got to tell you, infographics are probably the #1 resource for those statistics, and they're a great way of visualizing statistics. So a site like this is going to love them. Now, we know where infographics can be found. We know why they're so awesome. And maybe, hopefully, you're thinking, okay, I might want to consider this for my business, but how do I even get started? There are 3 important rules that you want to follow when you're creating an infographic, all right? First of all, you want to tell a story. Make sure that you're using your data and organizing it in a way that tells a story, leads the client or the reader somewhere in the end. You don't want to just throw up a bunch of stats and graphs and pie charts, right? Now, here's an example of a client who put together an infographic for landlords. This is all the things that you need to do before you rent your home. Okay, so He's got some great statistics about why you don't want to buy houses right now, why you want to rent, and why mortgages are going down and the rent's going up. It's a very cool concept. But he also goes to the next level and he says the first thing you want to do is consult your attorney, right? Something you need to think about. But you also need to set rules and boundaries for your renters. And then get a credit check on them and make sure that you've got all your money in order. Of course, you're going to get the rent from them, and that's going to pay your mortgage. But don't forget about when the house is vacant. Don't forget about taxes. Don't forget about insurance, all these other great things. And then, of course, figure out who's going to do the landscape, the snow removal. This is a cool infographic for someone who is a landlord, for someone who is considering renting their home. And by the way, this infographic was put together by a company called You Check Credit. Now, guess what they do? Yes, they check credit for landlords. And that just happens to be one of the main points of their infographic. So they've put together this great infographic for landlords, and they've marketed their service specifically right in the middle of the infographic. It's brilliant. They've told that story. They've led the reader to a serious conclusion. Now, you also want to communicate complex data simply. Use designs that make it easy for people to understand what you're trying to communicate to them. And I found a great infographic that does that better than any I've ever seen. Now, this one's called Google Plus is a Ghost Town. And if you look at this data right here, you can see that Facebook is clearly the #1 social media network. Google is number 2. Wait, what? I thought Twitter and LinkedIn, I thought they were much more popular. Well, as in sense of size, just as size goes, Google Plus is number 2. And see how that data visualizes that? Let's go on. Now we look at the amount of shares, the amount of communication that's going on in the social networks. And as you can see, Twitter is by far way more active. There's so much more activity there. Look at Google Plus. There's like 6 people there. 6 people talking about stuff. So yes, it's bigger, but as you can see from this visualization, Twitter is definitely number 1. It is the place to be if you want your information shared and communicated. Now they even go on further and they break it down into little different sections. Look at the tiny, tiny piece of pie that Google Plus has. So it's the visualizations right here that make you read through this infographic and you cannot walk away thinking, wow, I really need to be participating in Google Plus. Really, you're probably thinking, I don't need to be on Google Plus because nobody else is paying attention to it. Well, that's my take on it anyway. Now, we want to make your infographic shareable. Once you design it, once you build it, once you get it up on your website, you need to make it easy for people to find and share that infographic. And there's 2 ways that you want to do that. The first thing you want to do is you want to make sure you have share buttons. Now, these are available on it. Lots of blogs, there's lots of codes to put them out there, but just make sure that when somebody sees that infographic, they can hit a button, boom, and tweet it. They can like it on Facebook, or if they're one of those few people active on Google Plus, they can +1 it. So you want to make sure those share buttons are there. If they're not there, you've wasted a lot of your talent and time and energy. The other thing that you can do, especially if the infographic is on your blog, is you can include an embed code. An embed code looks like this right here. It appears underneath the infographic, and other bloggers can actually copy and paste that code right into their website, and then your infographic will show up in their site. They don't have to upload it, download it. They don't have to link to it. All they have to do is copy and paste that embed code, and it really, really makes their lives easier. So make sure that you have that ability to make your infographic shareable. All right, so hopefully by now you've kind of got this seed growing in your head that says, yeah, infographics are pretty cool. A, I'm going to pay closer attention to them. And B, maybe I ought to have one for my company. And then when I do it, I know how to do it now and I can make it shareable. So how do I get started? Well, first of all, you got to research your topic. You got to come up with something that's educational or at least interesting. Controversial is kind of fun. Entertaining also is a pretty good way of getting shared. So come up with something that fits your potential client's interests and create an infographic around that. Lay the data out in a manner that, of course, leads the consumer to a conclusion. It takes them somewhere and leads them to either click on your website or buy a product or at least walk away feeling more educated about your products and services. So those are the things you definitely want to do. I'm going to show you another quick example. Now this client actually sells a product that doesn't have a lot of data or research associated with it. And I'm sure a lot of you are thinking, well, what kind of data can I come up with related to my product? Well, this guy just came up with a top 10 list. That's all this infographic is. It's the top 10 backyard games of summer. And you've got washers on there and lawn darts. Be careful with those. I broke my grandmother's window with those when I was little. Redneck golf. You've got frisbee golf, kickball, of course. Yes, I was always the last one picked. Horseshoes, croquet, bocce ball, badminton, and then cornhole. Okay, some of you know what cornhole is, and that makes sense. Some of you may have never heard of cornhole, and that's kind of who this guy is targeting. If you are interested in backyard games, maybe you're a tailgater, maybe you are having a 4th of July party, and this came across your news feed somewhere in Facebook or Twitter, and you get down to the bottom, you're like, the #1 backyard game is cornhole? I've never even heard of that. Or, cornhole, I've played that, but I need my own set. Is it possible that this infographic might lead you to cornholeworldwide.com where you can go buy a cornhole board? Absolutely. That's a very simple way of using an infographic to lead the consumer to the guy's website. And it's just a top 10 list. If he can do this for cornhole, I'm sure you can come up with something clever for your business. Now, what you want to do after you come up with your ideas is you want to hire a graphic designer. You want to find somebody who knows Photoshop and actually can do the infographic design. You want to use, of course, different fonts, colors, images. You want to make it colorful and interesting. Here's a quick tip. If you've got a certain design on your website, if your website is greens and yellows, kind of include that in the infographic. Kind of keep that theme going on. And once your website or once your infographic is built, of course, put the infographic on your website. Then, of course, share it via your own local social media channels. If you've got 200 people following you on Facebook, share it with those 200. Hopefully, they'll share it with 200 more. If you have 20,000 people following you on Twitter, great. Share it with them. Share it with them often. If you don't have a whole big, giant network of your own, and maybe you've exhausted your own network, the next step is webmaster outreach. Now, you literally can contact those sites that would be interested in your infographic. Let's use the cornhole example. If I can find sites that talk about outdoor activities, maybe some Boy Scout stuff, parties, any of those things, I can go to those webmasters and I can say, hey, I've got this great infographic. I'd love to share it with you. Would you please post it up on your site? That's a great way of getting your infographic out there. It's very manual, but if they give you a backlink back to your site, again, that helps your SEO and it helps you put you in front of a new audience. So you definitely want to do those things. The other thing you can do is contact social media gurus, people who are big players in the social media space. Let's say your infographic is about cooking or food or something like that. Well, go to the Food Network on Twitter or some of those big foodies and reach out to them and share this infographic with them and ask them to tweet it, ask them to share it. Just let them know it's available, and if it's a great infographic, they'll want to share it. So those are the things you want to do. Create it, make it shareable, do a little webmaster outreach to get some backlinks, get it in front of new audiences, and then of course share it via social media influencers in your space. So there's really just 3 steps you got to take. This is a 3-part process. Number 1, create the infographic. That's going to involve an artist and a researcher, someone who can do the data collection and lay it out in a manner that makes sense, and an artist who's good at Photoshop or whatever particular tool they use to build that infographic. Then you want to distribute it to your friends, your networks, and you want to make sure that other websites are linking back to you. And then, of course, promote it via social media channels. All right, so I'll tell you what. If you're interested in using infographics as a strategy for your business, I've got folks in place that do all 3 of those things. I've got artists. I've got researchers. They can create an amazing infographic for you. I've got websites in place and folks who do webmaster outreach to get your infographic out there across the web. And I've got relationships with social media influencers so that we can get you all the likes, all the pluses, all the tweets that you need to truly get your infographic out there and give it the best opportunity of going viral. So if this is a strategy you want to explore, please give me a call back, or check out davidmcbee.com. All my contact information is there, as well as lots more articles on why infographics are awesome.